But what if? What if it became even darker? Darker than dark? What if we could take away the light that wasn't there until we reached another side? If that were to happen, you could start to see things again and hear them and feel them. Well met everyone, and welcome to this Deltarune theory video. As you can guess, we will be talking about Friend today. However, this will be more of a rambly type video rather than a well-constructed theory. We have seen a lot of people make their own assumption about Friend's identity without realizing that their hypotheses correlate to one another. This video aims to put together all of this evidence, strong or shaky, that can help us determine Friend's role in Deltarune, as well as proving that every single theory can coexist. For, in my opinion, Friend is everything. This video won't feature many visuals, only one slide per theory, so if you want to listen to it as background noise, feel free to do so. I'm going out on the principle that everyone who's clicked on this video already knows what Friend is, or already know what Friend is to an extent, so I won't be going over all of its appearances in Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and the Spamton sweepstakes. I imagine that you already know about all that, so I won't be wasting your time. Friend is a cat. When checking the Dealmaker's stats, Spamton's pink and yellow glasses, you can see that it gives you puppet and cat resistance. The puppet element can easily be attributed to Spamton Neil's body, but the cat resistance is quite an odd choice, isn't it? In Chapter 3, Friend takes the appearance of a disembodied cat head in the mental minigame, or a misformed androgyny with 5 legs that make out the silhouettes of cats during the Ralsei cutscene at the beginning of the chapter. In Chapter 4, the mic room is full of cats with pink and yellow color schemes. Cat Mike himself is a cat with pink and yellow eyes and a white outline, very similar to the white outline Friend has in every other appearance. Friend appears in the Rare Cats minigame in the Spamton sweepstakes, and Friend's file name in the Rare Cats page is Cat009. The Roots leitmotif, which I will be explaining in more detail later, is present in Catswing and Airwaves. In the Spamton sweepstakes, we can see that Noel mentions in a blog post a weird creature that would subtract points at random in the game Cat Petters. This behavior is extremely similar to what Friend does in the Rare Cats page on the Spamton sweepstakes, but also what Friend does in the Batat minigame, in which he also appears. Friend's design seems to be based on an illustration for Wacky Field, a Japanese book series about cats, and is also based on the Cheshire Cat to an extent, seeing the disembodied eyes and mouth slowly fading into darkness. In Chapter 2, in certain backgrounds of the Cyber City, you can spot yellow and pink windows, which have cats all over them. In the Light World, Catty is a cat-like monster with a pink and yellow color scheme, and has a lot of ties to the occult, which is important, as Friend is also believed to be a demon. Friend is a demon. To explain some points in this part of the video, I will be explaining a bit of the dichotomy between light and dark in Deltarune. Light is associated with heaven, and darkness is associated with hell. So the darker we get, the closer to hell we get. Knowing about this, I'd like to highlight that Friend shows up during Ralsei's monologue once he asked us what could happen if things were to become darker than dark. For a Lightner, what is darker than dark is the Dark World. But for a Darkner, what is darker than dark? We can see in Chapter 4, when the Roaring Knight opens the Dark Fountain inside of a Dark World, that the next level of darkness are the Titans. One very important of both the Titans' design and the Knight's design is the fact that they have white outlines, and Friend also possesses white outlines. Also, the Knight and Friend share the same laugh. The next arguments have a lot of ties with other theories which will be explained later in the video. First off, we can see that cat and puppet are listed as elements number 6 in the game files, and 6 is Hell's number. We can refer to Gaster for that. Friend has a lot of ties with the pointed tail or the tail of Hell. Friend is seen in the Shadow Mantle boss fight after going through a devil-horned door, and in this boss fight, we can see Titan eyes appear during the many phases of the fight. The Shadow Mantle owner itself uses fire attacks, which are very reminiscent of Hell. Vending machine in Chapter 3, offering a smile, which is now a friend thing, sorry Gaster, has the flavor text, always at your humble service. This is a direct reference to Undertale's secret demon text. The smile disappears once the Shadow Mantle is defeated. On the secret chair page in the Spamton sweepstakes, you can click on the chair multiple times to make friend appear. The text at the top of the window says, what if it could get darker than dark? Giving friend even more ties to the idea that there could be something even darker than darker than darker than darker than darker. The Roots leitmotif, which can be heard in both track Digital Roots and Bit Roots, tracks that appear only before or during an encounter with friends, kind of has the Nightmare leitmotif, but this is a bit shaky. Friend is Mike. The Roots leitmotif, 5 notes, is present in Spamton, Now's Your Chance to Be Up, Big Shot, Airwaves, and Cat Swing. Considering that Spamton has already stolen TV Time's leitmotif, as well as the Dummies leitmotif for some fucking reason, it is not surprising to assume that he also stole Mike's motif. There is a very interesting video on the subject that I will link in the description if you want more details on that. In the Mike room, Mike makes a direct reference to friend and states, "You people see pink and yellow and think, oh, a friend. Just because it's a friend doesn't mean it's yours. Those teeth, they bite." I would like to highlight the direct mention of teeth, which is the other huge part of its design that can also be disembodied as we see in the mental minigame. In Spamton's shop, if you pick the dialogue option, friend, he immediately talks about Mike. I mean, come on, Toby, come on! Pink and yellow is found everywhere inside the Mike room. In the mental minigame, Tenna shows up to talk about Spamton's secret to be a big shot right before we enter the shelter, in the part reminiscent of Queen's basement, and right before we fight Friend. This ties Friend to the deal Mike made with Spamton and its secret. Mike completely disappeared once Spamton left TV World. This ties to the idea that Friend is also the Shadow Crystal giver, which we will be talking about later in the video. Mike is the cut-off version of the phrase "my cat", and it is the worst fucking argument I've ever heard in my entire life. Friend is the pointed tail of hell. In the prophecy, the tail of hell is depicted as a string of circles. And in Cat Pedders, animals are stated to be made of multiple circles. Considering Friend is one of the only characters which has direct ties to Cat Pedders other than Noel, we can make the connection that Friend is indeed the tail of hell. Chapter 4's Secret Egg Room has a lot of evidence that can help us prove that Friend is indeed the tail of hell. First and foremost, this room features a huge prophecy panel where only the word Roots is written. As stated before, Roots is a reoccurring word in song titles for areas where Friend is spotted, such as Queen's Basement or the mental minigame. Next to this panel, we can see an organic that tells us the jumbled message of "Lost where the forest would grow, the children follow the pointed tail. The poor children." This builds a strong connection between the word Roots and the pointed tail. If you consider that the Forgotten Man is related to Chris's trauma, it is very interesting to note that the phrase "it was mixed up" is both used by the Forgotten Man himself and the organic right before saying "Lost where the forest will grow, the children follow the pointed tail." This ties Friend to Chris's trauma and possibly Dess's disappearance. Finally, if Friend is indeed a demon and a cat, it in fact possesses a tail and is from hell. Friend is the Shadow Crystal giver. When talking about Jevil to Charm, they mention how their vision of the world has gotten darker yet darker after seeing what happened to him. Thanks to Chapter 3, this sentence is now associated with the depth, and therefore, Friend. Jevil's design featured dark blue and green, which are the opposite of pink and gold, and Friend's eyes also turn dark green and blue when hit in the mental minigame. Spamton's glasses. Do I need to say more? Spamton's colleague says he heard garbage noise when picking up the phone after Spamton went crazy. It is a well-known fact that garbage noise refers to muse.smile. As we stated earlier, and as we will state later, smile is now related to friend. If friend is Mike, Mike is the one that eventually causes Spamton's downfall, and that leads to him finding the shadow crystal in the Neo body. Also, the first time we ever see friend is in Queen's basement when we are trying to retrieve the Neo body for Spamton. Chapter 3's equivalent for a secret boss is accessed via the pink and yellow odd controller and has us fighting friend. Jerson's design features pink and yellow highlights, his eye and his hair. The freedom motif is present in airwaves and overlaps with the roots motif. This is extremely weird because this is the only minigame where friend shows up, and the freedom motif is supposed to be about crystal bosses and secret bosses, so why is it playing here? Why would it possibly be playing in the only minigame where friend shows up with the roots motif? Like, do you realize how huge this is? I don't think anyone realizes that. Friend is seemingly made out of the same material as the knight, with the white outlines and black core, and the knight leaves a shadow crystal behind after its defeat. With that, I'd like to remind you that Friend and the Knight share the same laugh. Friend is the Shadow Mantle Holder in the Mantle minigame. As stated earlier, Mantle is only accessed by picking up the pink and yellow odd controller. Before entering the pyramid in Mantle, secret doors reveal Friend's eyes, teeth, and a text saying "See you soon" in the same font used by the Shadow Mantle's holder. Another secret room in the same area shows the Shadow Mantle flying away, but the connection is loose as the room is further south. As everyone knows by now, Iran is associated to the word nightmare spelled backwards, and the nightmare motif is somewhat present in the Roots tracks. Speaking of Root tracks, Bit Roots plays right before the encounter. And of course, during the fight, Friend spawns en masse. What more do you want? He's literally there. He's literally there. On the realm of pure hypothetical, the fact that the Shadow Mantle Holder speaks to Chris in such a familiar way can relate to the fact that they met a long time ago during Dess's disappearance, and that Friend has been overseeing Chris ever since. Use this part as a side tangent, because when Relsey says "and feel them" during his monologue, we can see Friend's face slowly fading onto its body. So I like to associate Friend with the fact that emotions can take physical forms in Dark World. And that emotion or feeling might as well be trauma, so maybe Friend is also Chris's repressed trauma taking form. And one last rather shaky connection, Burning Eyes, the name of the track once we fight the Shadow Mantle, is a reference to Death burning an icy box's eyes. The fact that it's a Death reference, plus there is a focus on eyes, eyes are a friend thing, Death is a friend thing. You see where I'm going with it. Friend is related to Gaster. Yeah, big whoop, I know. I'd like to remind you that the cat and puppet elements are listed as being element number 6. Ever since Undertale, Gaster has been affiliated with the number 6, also giving him a relation with any demonic imagery. If Friend is indeed a real demon, then the connection is clear. The shelter, which is theorized to have ties with Gaster, has pink and yellow keys in the Mantle minigame. Also, a slowed down version of Smile.Muse plays near the shelter, and Smile is now associated with Friend. Smile.Muse is also the same soundtrack that plays during entry number 17, and is related to Gaster's discovery of the Dark Worlds in Undertale. In the game's files, we can see that Friend is named Device Friend and Image Friend, which are prefixes given by Gasters to other assets related to him in the game's files. Freedom Motif, which I have connected by now to Friend, is a remixed version of Gaster's theme found in Undertale. At the beginning of the game, the Gonna Maker sequence in which we talk directly to Gaster takes place in the depth, where Friend hypothetically comes from. Friend is a hand. Throughout the game, there are many references to severed hands. A big Chekhov's gun in my opinion. And as we can see in Chapter 3, Friend takes the form of the Endogeny. However, instead of having 6 legs like an Undertale, Friend only has 5. Why miss an opportunity to associate Friend with the number 6? 5 is also the number of fingers on a human hand. Just a little food for thought. And just like that, we've already reached the conclusion of this rather quick video. If I have missed anything regarding Friend, which I doubt it's a rambly video, I've surely missed some things, but if I've missed anything, be sure to tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear more arguments and more theories and more hypotheses, because I'm a huge Friend fan. Also, I will try to link as many videos in the description, as most of my arguments in these videos were taken from videos that are way more in-depth and explain way more clearly what they want to express. So, with that, meet you when Chapter 5 drops, and we see Friend, and we have a huge Friend boss fight, and everyone will realize that Friend is the huge antagonist of the game.